Welcome to Interactive Storytelling. This is the beginning of the second set of videos, which focuses on the analysis of storytelling and previous research on interactive storytelling. When we start covering the background of almost any scientific research area, we find retracing the steps all the way back to ancient Greece and to the philosopher and polymath Aristotle. Among his vast collection of writings, the one that interests us here is his treatise on drama, called Poetics, which originated about the year 335 before Common Era. Although its analysis is based on ancient Greek theatre, it forms the basis of Western literary theory. The original work included two parts, but only the first part, focusing on tragedies, has survived, whereas the second part, focusing on comedy, is lost, which is a real pity because it had been interesting to hear Aristotle's take on humor, laughter, and silliness. In the surviving part of Poetics, Aristotle tries to understand what makes tragedies appealing. It isn't a how-to tutorial, but an analysis on how a story can affect people. Of the wealth of material presented in Poetics, I'm going to present three concepts. First, the elements of tragedy. Second, narrative forms. And third, the dramatic arc. Each of them has had a profound effect on Western drama and literature, and they can still be seen today in modern storytelling. Aristotle recognizes 6 elements of tragedy, which he assigns to 3 classes depending whether the question is about the represented objects, the means of representation, or the manner of representation. First of the 6 elements is plot, mythos, that describes the incidents of the story and their order. These actions should follow logically from what happened before. They should also follow from the characters' decisions. The plot imposes causality. First happens this, and because of it, then happens that, and that leads to something else to happen. We all know what this is and how it makes us curious to hear more about the story. We are all the time waiting to find out what happens next. The second element, character, ethos, reflects the moral choices that the character makes, which gets revealed in the character's actions. This refers to the ethical nature or morality of the character, for example, the character's vices and virtues. The third element, thought, dianoia, refers to the character's reasoning or rationality. By observing the character, we can infer its thought process and background. These first 3 elements are part of the represented objects. We can observe the story and infer these elements from our observations. The fourth element is language, lexis, which relates to the selection and arrangement of words and the use of language in the story. Through the language, we understand the story and its objects. The fifth element, melody, melos, also relates to the language, but instead of words, it refers to the rhythm and melody of speech. This is, for example, what an actor can bring into a film. The screenwriter has written the words, lexis, but the actor brings them alive by acting them out and adding melos. These 2 elements are part of the means of representation. This is what we perceive of the story. The 6th and the final element is spectacle, opsis. It includes the whole appearance of the story. For example, in a play it includes costumes, props and sceneries. It belongs to the manner of representation. According to Aristotle, a good drama, and also a good story, should pay attention to all of these attributes. It should never try to cover, for example, the lack of characterization with a clever dialogue or spectacle. It should start from the plot, and each of the layers then adds something more on top. Let's move on to the second thing from Aristotle's Poetics, namely narrative forms. Aristotle recognizes two forms of stories, the ones with an epic narrative and the ones with a dramatic narrative. In the epic form, the story tells the exploits of a solitary hero. The motivations of the hero remain fairly simple. For example, the Odyssey is an epic story where the main character, the hero, Odysseus, tries to find his way home. An epic can be expanded easily by inventing new adventures for the hero. Our oldest stories are usually epics. They were originally told by a bard to a live audience, and they rely strongly on the plot, the audience's expectation on what happens next. In the dramatic form, the events are represented through the imitation of action. Instead of focusing on one special character, a dramatic story involves networks of human relations. Also, the actions are usually happening on the mental rather than the physical level. Problems aren't typically solved with fighting and physical action, but the solution might require scheming or collaborative effort. It's quite obvious that the dramatic form is more mature than the epic form, because it adds a psychological layer to the characters. These aren't the only narrative forms, although Aristotle named just these two. Marie-Laure Ryan lists two additional narrative forms, epistemic and soap opera. The epistemic form emerged in the 19th century with the popularity of detective stories. Here we have a superposition of two stories, events that took place in the past and an investigation that leads to their discovery. These kind of mystery stories are driven by the audience's desire to know and find out, together with the investigator, what has happened. The fourth narrative form is the soap opera, which emerged in the 20th century. In soap operas, the story is continuous and open. It could be almost infinite. And the characters go through their own dramatic arcs, which can be partly overlapping and sequential. For Aristotle, change is an elemental part of the story. This change can be from happiness to misery, from joy to sadness, or from riches to rags. Why this way? Aristotle Poetics focuses on tragedies, so of course things get bad to worse. But leaving tragedies aside, the change could be to the opposite direction, from misery to happiness, from sadness to joy, or from rags to riches. Pick your choice. Gustav Freytag summarized Aristotle's ideas into the illustration of a dramatic arc. The story begins from the initial situation. For example, the characters and their normal life is introduced to us. An exciting force launches the story into motion. Something new, strange, frightening, or otherwise out of the ordinary happens and messes the everyday life of the characters. The rise in action increased the complication and drama. The story could be getting ever more suspenseful. The rise in action peaks out in a climax. This is the moment when everything is at its worst and something new has to happen. We need a counteraction. The characters might devise a plan how to solve the problems. The counteraction leads to a fall. Things seem to get solved, maybe not all of them, but at least some. Before the end, there is final suspense. Oh no, the monster isn't actually dead, although everybody thought so. And the story ends with a catastrophe. What did you expect? Aristotle Poetics focuses on tragedies. Too bad. It's easy to see that the dramatic arc has had a strong influence on the Western theatre. It has been seen as the ideal structure for well-formed plays. And later, it has been seen as the ideal structure for well-formed films. And even later, it has seen as the ideal structure for video games. I guess you get the picture. It's been pervasive in the Western and also global culture. Yes, over 23 centuries has passed since Aristotle wrote Poetics. It is still highly influential. You can't escape it if you're interested in telling stories, not even if they are interactive ones. In the next video, we jump forward in time to the early 20th century. Something is happening in Russia. A revolution, they say. And that revolution is going to change how we understand stories. See you there.